office with a £200 million endowment, and we've been set up as a 10-year charity. We're about 3 years into that 10 years, specifically to be a funder and find out what works, to build a movement, to put this knowledge into practice around how we can reduce children and young people from becoming involved in violence. Next slide, please. In terms of our overall work, this is a nice little slide that describes our approach and our strategy. So we're a funder, so we fund good work, and that those funds are based around 3 core areas. We have funding rounds around our priority themes, of which we've got 8 at the moment, and you might have seen some of those over the last few years. So we have, for example, funded a diversion round, we've funded an education round, and we've funded a family support round so far. We have place-based funds, of which the agency collaboration is one of them, and we have targeted projects. And because the YF is a What Works Centre, a really important part of our mission is to find out what works. So everything that we fund, we evaluate really robustly so that we're able to build up a really concrete evidence base of what works to reduce children and young people from getting involved in violence. Part of our work is to build really strong partnerships and coalitions, and that includes through funding partnerships, but it also includes through joint working arrangements, and youth voice and the voice of young people is really important to us. So we have a youth advisory board, and we involve young people at every opportunity in the planning and the delivery of our funding rounds. We also have a very, very strong commitment to race equity because of the disproportionality of children who are Black, Asian and from minority backgrounds in the criminal justice system. And we expect our partners and our grantees to have a similar commitment to race equity and other disadvantages. And last but not least, we work for change. So we scale up what works. We spread great practice. So we have lots of networks and lots of planning for future networks to share and learn from each other. And part of our remit is to improve the overall system. Next slide, please, Hannah. So why we're here today. Today, we're going to share about our agency collaboration fund in particular, but then we're going to drill down into this particular round and give you some information about this trusted adult round and what we plan to fund, and a little bit about how young people and other partners have informed our thinking. Next slide, please. So agency collaboration fund, this particular funding round is our second round, and the aim of agency collaboration is each funding round aims to better understand the common challenges related to how local agencies share information, data and power, and then to fund and evaluate the potential solutions. So our agency collaboration fund is all about how agencies can work better together, how they can collaborate in partnerships to particularly tackle our core mission. Next slide, please. And just a little snapshot of how this runs. So all our agency collaboration fund rounds and partnerships need to include as a minimum 2 statutory agencies, but can also include the voluntary sector and the private sector. You'll see in a moment that this particular round, inclusion of the voluntary sector is a mandatory requirement for this round. We ran our first round on focus deterrence. We launched that last year, and we're now due to launch our second round on a trusted adult theme. We aim to run at least 1 round per year, and every round will be aligned to one of our priority themes. And we take one of 3 different approaches to this particular fund, either market-led, where we do an open tender and ask for existing organisations to submit proposals against existing projects, a design-led process where there is an existing model that is well evidence-based very well, but it may not have been tested in the UK before. That's the case very much with our focus deterrence round. And last but not least, there's a co-design approach, which is the format that we're running this current round on, where we have some ideas and some hypotheses, but part of the program is to actually co-design a project plan and approach for, and then testing that approach. Next slide, please. So the trusted adult round, this particular round is focusing on children and young people aged 10 to 20. So a little bit going up to a little bit older than our usual under 18 remit, who are at risk of violence or criminal exploitation outside the home. And that includes both victims and children and young people who cause harm. And how we want to do this is by testing multi-agency and multidisciplinary neighbourhood teams through a feasibility study in the first instance. And this flexible model will be aligned with recommendations from the DfE's independent review of children's social care for this particular cohort of children and young people. This round is co-funded, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, with our colleagues and partners, BBC Children in Need and the Hunter Foundation. And they've partnered with us in order to positively impact the lives of children and young people at risk of being affected by violence, in order to support them to thrive and be the best they can be. Next slide, please. So why have we chosen this particular focus in this particular round? So many reasons, but I think these two bullet points summarise it quite nicely. So from research and consultation, we know that children and young people at risk of violence or criminal exploitation outside the home have really complex needs that span different professional disciplines, and also different departments at government level, but also at local level as well in terms of responsibility. Yet there is actually very little evidence on what an effective multi-agency team approach and practice looks like. In preparing for the round, we've worked closely, particularly with the Department for Education, but also other government departments. And what we're really hoping is that the learning and evidence from this round will help inform the policy and practice for children and young people at risk of extrafamilial harm, including reforms to children's social care. So a summary of what we're looking to fund, so our round overview. So we want to test specialist, multi-agency and multidisciplinary teams, which are located in neighbourhoods to support children, young people and their families and carers who are vulnerable to or actually experiencing violence or criminal exploitation outside the home. And we will fund up to 5 partnership projects in England and or Wales. And for each of those partnerships, we will expect the partnership to set up and implement 2 neighbourhood teams in their geographical patch. We will test the recommendations from the independent review of children's social care for this cohort, including a range of things. And when the fund is launched, we will be you'll see that this is set out in much more detail, but it includes locating teams in trusted community settings, offering transitional safeguarding support for that 18 to 20-year-old cohort, which, as many of you will know, often slip through the gaps or through the net. It will combine the support currently offered at targeted early help with child in need and social care support functions using key worker model approach. We want strong involvement with parents as partners where appropriate, and also children and young people in the planning and co-design of the delivery model. And the approach will support maintaining small caseloads with good quality staff support and supervision. So once the round is up and running, there'll be 2 phases to it. The first phase will be a preparation phase of up to 6 months, where partners are supported by a YEF-appointed co-design partner. So this is an expert organisation that is currently out to tender to plan their delivery model and to recruit and train the staff. using the framework that we set out, which has got some core elements to it, but a lot of flexibility within that framework. And this will then be followed by a 12-month implementation period. And the evaluation approach will be through a feasibility study. If the findings are promising from that feasibility study, we will then fund these sites to scale up their projects for a further 2 years and evaluate through an impact evaluation if that's feasible. Funding for this first phase, the feasibility phase of up to 18 months, will be up to £500,000 per project. That's delivery costs, plus a match funding expectation in cash or in kind. And YF will be funding, and our partners will be funding evaluation separately to that budget. So which children and young people are in scope for this round? So as I've already mentioned, we are wanting to fund projects which are working with children and young people aged 10 to 20 who are involved in or at risk of involvement in violence outside the home and or criminal exploitation. And we think that these young people are likely to include, though this list is not exclusive, the following: children who are care experienced, children currently known to local authority early help, child in need or child protection services or specialist exploitation services, or VCFSE organisations who are working with children in this cohort. Children involved in offending or antisocial behaviour, children who might be permanently excluded from school or in regular receipt of fixed term exclusions, off rolling or poor school attendance, those who regularly go missing, children with disabilities or SEND, children who misuse substances, parents or children and young people who are parents or siblings involved in crime, and children and young people who may be homeless or living in independent or semi-independent accommodation, and that may apply particularly to older adolescents or young adults. So who do we want to fund? I've mentioned this round is open to partnership applications. So each application must be a partnership, but the lead applicant must be the local authority. And we are listing a number of organisations who must be part of that partnership. So they must be mandatory partners, but applicants are absolutely free to include additional partners as well. And those mandatory partners include the police, mental health, education, including schools, and VCFSE organisations. Sorry, I've got an acronym there, which not everybody might be familiar with. So that's voluntary, community and faith and social enterprise organisations. The applicant must demonstrate a need for this type of service through local data sets. The number of children and young people eligible for this type of support must be in the hundreds for each team. And partnerships must have the ability to scale with these numbers into at least 2 other neighbourhoods. We do understand that, that those 2 additional neighbourhoods may potentially not be in a single local authority. So at scale up, there may be opportunity to join with another local authority so that there's a larger number of neighbourhoods in cohort. Agencies in the partnership must have senior leadership endorsement for the application, and we are interested in applicants who can demonstrate strong local leadership. We're also interested in areas which are already delivering this type of partnership model for this cohort of children and young people, but it doesn't have to be the complete article. You might be delivering a multi-agency service for some of these children, but not all of them, for example, or it might be a citywide approach and not at neighbourhoods. So it doesn't matter if some elements are not currently being delivered, but certainly we're interested that you're partway, at least along the journey. And applicants should not currently be delivering a large-scale impact evaluation involving children in this cohort, including a YF-funded programme. And that's because it would make things pretty complicated to have 2 large-scale programmes with the same cohort of children and young people in the same area. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to pass on to my colleague Jackie, who's going to talk through the next couple of slides.
Thanks, Gail. So I wanted to talk through briefly our approach to evaluation. As Gail mentioned, we're taking a phased approach to the evaluation. We want to begin with a feasibility study where we'll want to test the model across all localities. So that will be, as Gail said, 2 neighbourhoods in up to 5 local authority areas over an implementation period of 12 months, and that will be following an up to 6-month preparation phase. And during the feasibility study, we're really keen to take a broad view of the approach. We're interested in exploring the emerging relationship between systems conditions, so such as the multi-agency partnership arrangements, data sharing and the joining up of data systems and devolved budgets, with the good practice tools and key principles and key components of the model, and any emerging outputs and outcomes for children, young people, families and carers. And during the feasibility study, we also want to test whether and how an impact evaluation may be feasible. And we'll be asking the evaluations to look at all options for that, including randomised control trial and quasi-experimental designs for the impact evaluation, to see what methods might be feasible and acceptable for that next phase of the evaluation, if indeed that is the next phase is feasible. And given the complexity of the approach and how multifaceted it is, if the evaluation does progress to impact evaluation, we would also want to continue with a process evaluation that runs alongside of the impact study. And this is really important because it will help to generate those insights about what works, for whom, in what contexts, how and why, which will help to explain why and how impact has been realised and what is contributing to that. And as Gail mentioned before, this is really important in terms of influencing wider policy and practice. Next slide, please, Hannah. So the key aims of the feasibility study will be to develop a strong hypothesis for how the partnership model should be implemented within different contexts, generate lessons on the effective implementation of the model, and explore the feasibility and present an options analysis and a clear recommendation for a robust impact evaluation. Now, where we're up to is we've launched the call for expressions of interest for an evaluation partner. There's more information there on our evaluation approach that's on our website. If any evaluators on the call today would like a further conversation about the evaluation, please do reach out. We won't have a lot of time to get into the detail today, but more than happy to arrange a call. And then more formal questions as part of the expression of interest process can be submitted via the YEF inbox before the 10th of February. Hand back over to you, Gail.
Thanks, Jackie. So timelines. We're launching this round on the 7th of March. The application window is 10 weeks. That's slightly longer than our usual application window because we recognise it can take a bit of time sometimes to pull partnerships together. We will have an opportunity for potential applicants to ask clarification questions in the first 7 weeks of that 10-week period, and we will publish the answers to those questions on our website at the end of each of those first 7 weeks. They will be anonymised, so it won't be clear who's asked the question. The application window closes on the 16th of May, and then we'll be shortlisting from the 17th of May with interviews for successful shortlisted applications on the 12th and 13th of June. We're aiming to get board approval of successful applicants mid-July, with the start of the preparation phase, July and August, with implementation phase starting February, March. Those exact dates, start dates, are still to be confirmed. As I said at the beginning, our recording and slides of this session will be available on our website after Monday. And we are going to be running 2 application workshops. They'll be identical. So interested parties only need to come to one of them once we've launched, where we'll be going through the application process and the application form in more detail for people who are interested in applying. So they're on the 9th of March and the 14th of March. In the meantime, before we launch, if you have any informal queries, questions, please do drop us a line in our general grants inbox at grants@youthendowmentfund.org.uk, or if you have a specific question relating to evaluation, to drop Jackie a line on jackie.harrison@youthendowmentfund.org.uk. Thank you.